many of us are caught in the trap of being overly soft, bending to every demand, and allowing others to dictate our lives. We call it kindness, but is it? Or are we simply afraid of saying no, fearful of losing approval, or hesitant to stand alone? The truth is, when you're too soft, you sacrifice your own growth, your own strength, and ultimately your own destiny. If you've been feeling drained, constantly giving without getting back, it's time to wake up. Today, we're going to talk about why being soft isn't love, why it isn't strength, and how it's keeping you from becoming the person you're truly meant to be. Stay with me, because what you'll hear today could change your life forever. Compassion is one of the most powerful forces we can offer to others. It's the ability to understand someone's pain and to extend help with kindness and empathy. But too often, people mistake compassion for softness, believing that to be kind is to always say yes, to never challenge others, and to always accommodate their needs. This misunderstanding leads to enabling behavior, where instead of helping someone grow, we allow them to remain in their weaknesses and dysfunctions. To truly understand the difference between compassion and enabling, we must recognize that compassion seeks the highest good of others, while enabling merely keeps them comfortable in their current state. Compassion requires discernment. It's not just about offering help or giving in to every request, it's about understanding what that person truly needs to grow. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is say no. Sometimes real compassion looks like challenging someone to rise above their current situation, even if it makes them uncomfortable. When you confuse compassion with enabling, you create a dependency. The person you're trying to help becomes reliant on your constant support, never learning to stand on their own. They begin to expect you to always be there to clean up their messes, solve their problems, or make their lives easier. While it might feel like you're helping, in reality, you're robbing them of the opportunity to develop their own strength, resilience, and responsibility. By stepping in too often, you're stunting their growth and keeping them trapped in the very issues they need to overcome. It's important to realize that people grow through struggle. Challenges are what shape us, teach us, and force us to rise to higher levels. When you enable someone, you shield them from the consequences of their actions, preventing them from learning valuable lessons. True compassion allows others to face those consequences, because that's where real growth happens. It's not about abandoning them in their time of need, but about knowing when to step in and when to step back. Being compassionate means having the wisdom to know when your help is actually helpful and when it's merely a band-aid. It's about seeing the bigger picture, understanding that short-term discomfort may lead to long-term transformation. Enabling, on the other hand, is driven by a desire to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, or to make ourselves feel good by always being the nice person. But enabling is not nice. It's destructive. It keeps people stuck in patterns of behavior that harm them and those around them. To offer true compassion, you must first establish boundaries, both for yourself and for the other person. Boundaries ensure that your kindness is directed in a way that fosters growth, rather than dependency. They protect both you and the person you're helping from falling into unhealthy dynamics where neither of you benefits. Compassion doesn't mean allowing someone to take advantage of your kindness. It means being wise enough to know when to stop giving and when to let them stand on their own. Setting clear boundaries is one of the most essential acts of self-respect, yet it is often one of the most misunderstood. Too many people believe that boundaries are harsh or unkind, when in fact they are vital for maintaining healthy relationships and personal well-being. Boundaries are not about shutting others out or keeping them at arm's length. They are about defining where your responsibility ends and another person's begins. Without boundaries, you will find yourself constantly overwhelmed, drained, and feeling as if your life is not your own. Many people struggle with setting boundaries because they fear rejection, confrontation, or disappointing others. This fear leads to people-pleasing behaviors where they say yes when they really mean no, or they allow others to overstep, thinking it's easier to avoid conflict than to stand up for themselves. But this avoidance only leads to greater issues down the road. Without clear boundaries, others will naturally assume they can continue to take more and more from you, leaving you exhausted, frustrated, and resentful. And the worst part, you start to lose sight of your own needs and desires, becoming a passive participant in your own life. Setting boundaries doesn't require apology. When you apologize for having boundaries, you're essentially saying that your needs and well-being are less important than others' demands. Boundaries are a declaration of your worth. They are a way of saying, this is what I need to function at my best, and I won't compromise that for anyone. When you set a boundary, you're not asking for permission, you're asserting your right to live in a way that honors who you are and what you need. It's important to understand that if people truly care about you, they will respect your boundaries. And if they don't, it's a clear sign that they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries more than they were respecting you as a person. A key element to setting boundaries is clarity. You have to be specific about what you will and won't tolerate. Vague boundaries leave room for misinterpretation and manipulation. For example, saying, I need more space, might not be as effective as saying, I'm unavailable after 7 p.m. For anything work-related, clarity removes ambiguity and ensures that your expectations are understood. The more clear you are, the easier it is to enforce your boundaries, and the less likely people will be to push back. Once boundaries are set, it's crucial to enforce them consistently. If you don't, others will see them as flexible suggestions rather than firm limits. Consistency in upholding boundaries builds trust both in yourself and in your relationships. People will know where you stand, and more importantly, you will know where you stand. Over time, the initial discomfort of setting boundaries will be replaced by a sense of freedom and empowerment. You will feel more in control of your life, and those around you will begin to respect and appreciate you for standing up for yourself. Tough love is one of the most misunderstood aspects of genuine care. Many believe that love should always be gentle, always agreeable, and never cause discomfort. But real love doesn't look the other way when someone is on a destructive path. Real love doesn't avoid difficult conversations simply to keep the peace. Tough love is rooted in the desire for the other person's growth, even if that means temporary pain or discomfort. It's about understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to challenge them to rise above their current behavior or mindset, rather than coddling them where they are. When you care about someone, you want the best for them, but that doesn't always mean making them feel good in the moment. Tough love recognizes that growth often comes through discomfort and challenges. A person who is never confronted about their harmful behaviors or poor choices will continue in a pattern of stagnation, never reaching their full potential. Tough love isn't about being harsh or punitive. It's about being willing to have those difficult conversations, even when it feels uncomfortable, because you care enough about the person's future to not let them remain where they are. There are moments in life when people need to be held accountable for their actions. They need to face the consequences of their choices in order to learn, grow, and mature. Shielding someone from those consequences under the guise of love is not helping them, it's harming them. When you intervene too quickly or constantly rescue someone from the fallout of their own decisions, you rob them of the opportunity to learn valuable lessons that only experience can teach. Tough love steps back and allows the person to face the reality of their actions, knowing that in the long run, this will foster growth and responsibility. In many relationships, people confuse enabling with love. They think that by constantly smoothing things over, fixing problems, and being endlessly accommodating, they are being loving. But enabling behavior keeps people stuck. It allows them to continue making poor choices without ever experiencing the full impact of those choices. Tough love, on the other hand, challenges them to take responsibility for their actions. It's not easy to watch someone you care about struggle, but sometimes that struggle is necessary for them to grow stronger. At its core, tough love is about holding people to higher standards because you believe in their potential. It's about saying, I care too much about you to let you stay where you are. This kind of love is not about controlling someone else's life, but about encouraging them to take control of their own. It's about pushing them out of the nest. Knowing that they have to learn to fly on their own. It's understanding that temporary discomfort or conflict is often the path to long-term healing and success. Tough love also requires you to be firm and consistent. You can't waver in your standards or give in to guilt. If you say there will be consequences for certain actions, you must follow through. If you're inconsistent, the person will never take you seriously, and they'll continue to push boundaries. Tough love is not a one-time action, it's a commitment to standing firm in your convictions, knowing that it's for the greater good of the person you care about. Manipulation can often be hidden behind a facade of innocence, making it difficult to recognize and even harder to confront. People who manipulate others don't always do so in obvious ways. Instead, they often disguise their intentions under the appearance of helplessness, ignorance, or vulnerability. This can make you feel as though you're the one being unreasonable or unfair, when in fact you are being taken advantage of. Recognizing manipulation masquerading as innocence requires a keen sense of awareness and the ability to look beyond the surface of what someone is saying or doing. One of the most common tactics of manipulation is playing the victim. A manipulative person will position themselves as someone who is always in need of help or sympathy, making you feel responsible for their well-being. They will often exaggerate their struggles or downplay their capabilities, all to evoke a sense of pity or guilt in you. When someone constantly presents themselves as incapable, they are setting up a dynamic where you feel obligated to step in and handle things for them. This keeps you in a cycle of giving without expecting anything in return, and over time it becomes emotionally draining. Another subtle form of manipulation is using flattery or praise to influence your behavior. A person might shower you with compliments, making you feel good about yourself, only to later ask for something in return. This creates a sense of indebtedness, as though you owe them something because they've been kind or appreciative toward you. It's easy to fall into this trap, thinking that their intentions are pure, when in reality they're using your desire for approval to get what they want. Manipulative people also rely heavily on guilt. They may say things like, "If you really cared about me, you would," or "I guess I'm just not important enough to you." These statements are designed to make you feel as though you're failing them in some way, when in fact they are trying to control your actions through emotional manipulation. The appearance of innocence in these moments can be disarming, making you question whether you're the one at fault. But the reality is they are using guilt to get you to comply with their wishes without taking responsibility for their own behavior. Another red flag to watch for is when someone is consistently evasive or avoids accountability for their actions. They may twist conversations to make it seem like they didn't really say or do something that hurt you, or they may pretend not to understand why you're upset. This tactic keeps you in a position of doubt, constantly second-guessing your own perceptions. They act as if they're too naive or innocent to have caused harm, but in reality, they are fully aware of the manipulation they are engaging in. Recognizing this manipulation requires you to trust your instincts. When something feels off, or when you sense that someone's words and actions don't align, it's often a sign that manipulation is at play. It's important to ask yourself whether this person's behavior consistently puts you in a position of giving while they take, or whether they seem to benefit from keeping you emotionally off balance. Many people mistake softness for strength, believing that by avoiding conflict, always saying yes, and being endlessly accommodating, they are displaying an inner fortitude. They tell themselves that staying silent in the face of mistreatment or bending to everyone's demands makes them strong, because they can endure more. But true strength is not found in always being agreeable or allowing others to walk all over you. Strength is the ability to stand firm in your convictions, to say no when necessary, and to protect your boundaries even when it's uncomfortable. Being too soft often comes from a place of fear. It's rooted in the fear of losing approval, the fear of being disliked, or the fear of creating tension in relationships. People who are soft believe that by avoiding confrontation and always being accommodating, they will maintain peace and harmony. But this is not real peace. Instead, it's a false sense of calm that comes at the expense of your own well-being. When you constantly suppress your own needs, desires, and opinions to keep others happy, you end up betraying yourself. This is not a sign of strength, it's a sign of self-neglect. Real strength requires a willingness to face discomfort, both within yourself and in your interactions with others. It means standing up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular. It means saying no when someone is overstepping, even if it risks offending them. True strength is about knowing who you are and being confident enough in yourself that you don't need everyone's approval to feel validated. When you're too soft, you become dependent on external validation, and that makes you vulnerable to manipulation and mistreatment. People who mistake softness for strength often find themselves in one-sided relationships. They give and give, hoping that their endless kindness will be reciprocated, but they end up feeling drained and taken for granted. This happens because others learn that you will always accommodate them no matter how much it costs you. They see your softness as an opportunity to get what they want without any resistance. The more you allow this dynamic to continue, the more difficult it becomes to assert yourself and break free from the cycle. True strength also involves protecting your energy and mental health. When you're too soft, you absorb the negativity, problems, and demands of others without any boundaries in place to protect yourself. This leads to burnout, resentment, and a deep sense of dissatisfaction. Strength is recognizing when you need to step back, say no, or remove yourself from situations that are draining you. It's understanding that you are not responsible for fixing everyone's problems or keeping everyone happy. You have a right to prioritize your own well-being without feeling guilty. Being strong doesn't mean you have to be harsh or unkind. You can still be compassionate and empathetic, but you must also be firm. Strength is about balance, knowing when to offer a helping hand and when to let others figure things out on their own. It's about valuing yourself enough to not let others take advantage of your kindness. The desire to please everyone is a trap that many people fall into, often without even realizing it. At first, it might seem like an admirable quality, being agreeable, accommodating, and always going out of your way to make others happy. But in reality, people-pleasing is a form of self-betrayal. When you're constantly trying to meet the expectations of others, you end up sacrificing your own needs, values, and even your sense of self. The deeper you fall into this habit, the further you drift from your authentic self. It's a path that leads to exhaustion, resentment, and ultimately, a lack of self-respect. When you live your life trying to please others, you're giving away your power. Every decision you make is influenced by how others might react, what they might think of you, or whether they'll approve. Over time, this constant need for external validation strips you of your own voice. You become more focused on keeping the peace or avoiding conflict than on what truly matters to you. And the more you give, the more people expect. Eventually, you're left feeling drained, unappreciated, and used, all while those around you continue to take without even realizing the toll it's taking on you. One of the biggest dangers of people-pleasing is that it erodes your self-respect. When you continually put others' needs ahead of your own, you send yourself a message that your desires, your boundaries, and your well-being are less important. Over time, this mindset becomes ingrained, and you begin to believe that your worth is tied to how much you can do for others. This is a dangerous cycle because it keeps you trapped in a pattern of seeking approval at the expense of your own happiness. The more you do for others without regard for your own needs, the more you lose sight of who you are and what you truly want. Respecting yourself starts with understanding that you are worthy of prioritizing your own needs and desires. It's about recognizing that you don't have to sacrifice your happiness for the sake of others. Self-respect means setting boundaries, saying no when necessary, and not feeling guilty for doing so. It's not about being selfish, it's about acknowledging that you deserve the same care and consideration that you give to others. When you start respecting yourself, you stop allowing others to take advantage of your kindness. You become more confident in your decisions, more assertive in your interactions, and more at peace with who you are. It's important to realize that you cannot please everyone. No matter how hard you try, there will always be someone who is dissatisfied or critical. Trying to mold yourself to meet the expectations of others is a losing battle, because those expectations are constantly changing and you'll never be able to meet them all. Instead, focus on pleasing the person who matters most to you. When you start living according to your own values, priorities, and goals, you'll attract people who respect you for who you truly are, not for what you can do for them. True self-respect also requires you to stop seeking validation from others. When you respect yourself, you don't need constant approval or praise to feel good about who you are. You trust your own judgment, and you're comfortable with the choices you make, even if they aren't popular. In life, being soft and always pleasing everyone may feel like the path of least resistance, but it comes at the cost of your self-respect, growth, and true happiness. Real strength lies not in avoiding conflict or constantly accommodating others, but in setting boundaries, embracing tough love, and respecting yourself enough to say no when necessary. When you stop being soft and standing firm, you empower yourself and others to grow. You create healthier relationships and a life that aligns with your values, not the expectations of others. Remember, you are not here to be everything for everyone. You are here to live authentically, to fulfill your purpose, and to respect yourself first. Strength is found in knowing who you are and having the courage to live that truth, no matter what others think. Thank you for staying with us through this video. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to share it, because it just might help someone else reclaim their strength and self-respect. We appreciate you being here with us today.